Okay, let's talk about a huge question. How much should the government really know about you when you buy a house? Right now, that very question is at the center of this massive legal fight in the US real estate world. It's a clash between national security and your personal privacy, and it was all kicked off by a brand new rule that just got stopped dead in its tracks. So let's get right to it. Why would a rule that's designed to fight serious crime in the housing market get blocked by a federal judge? It sounds weird, right? Well, let's dive in. And here's the headline that set this all off. A judge down in Texas basically put up a giant stop sign, blocking a major new rule from the Treasury Department. He pretty much told the federal government, whoa, not so fast. So to really get what's going on here with this ruling, we've got to first understand who's who in this high-stakes legal drama. All right, so in one corner, you've got the plaintiff, Celia Flowers. She's a title company owner from Texas, and she's being represented by the Pacific Legal Foundation. And in the other corner, the big defendant, the Treasury Department's Financial Crime Fighting Unit, FinCEN. And the ref, the person who made the final call here, that's U.S. District Judge Jeremy Kernodle. But hold on. Before we jump into the legal fight itself, we have to understand why this rule was even created in the first place. And it all boils down to this huge problem in real estate dirty cash. And the size of this problem is, well, it's pretty staggering. If you look at the numbers, all cash sales make up a whopping 28% of all transactions. Then you add another 22% of sales that are done through legal entities, like trusts or LLCs. You add those together, and that is half the market operating with a level of anonymity that's just begging to be exploited. So, the government's whole goal here was to shine a massive spotlight right onto these kinds of deals. This rule was specifically designed to unmask criminals. We're talking everyone from drug cartels to foreign enemies who use these anonymous shell companies and all-cash deals to wash their dirty money by buying up U.S. property. Okay, so the problem is pretty clear. What was the government's big solution? Let's break down exactly what FinCEN's new reporting rule actually wanted people to do. First off, who exactly is FinCEN? Well, it's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Think of them as the part of the Treasury Department whose whole job is to fight financial crime. So yeah, these are the people who came up with the rule. And they didn't just pull this power out of thin air. They get their authority from something called the Bank Secrecy Act. It's a law that's been around since 1970, and it gives the Treasury a ton of power to make banks and others report on big cash deals to fight exactly this kind of crime. So, what did the rule actually make people do? Well, it basically turned real estate closing agents into part-time financial detectives. They were going to be required to collect and report just a mountain of information. Who the trust or company is, who the real owners are behind it, who's signing the papers, all the details about the property and the seller, social security numbers, how the payments are made. The list just goes on. It was a massive new reporting burden. And this all happened incredibly fast. The Treasury proposed the rule back in early 2024. By April of 2025, bam, the lawsuit was filed. The whole thing was supposed to go into effect in December 2025, but now it's completely frozen because of this legal challenge. All right, now we get to the real heart of the conflict. Why did this rule get hit with such a fierce legal challenge? Let's unpack the case against it. This whole debate really boils down to two totally different ways of looking at the world. On one side, you have the challengers. They're saying this is government overreach, it's a huge, costly burden on small businesses, and it violates our Fourth Amendment privacy rights. But on the other side, the supporters are saying, no, this is an absolutely critical tool for transparency that stops cartels and protects our national security. So the lawsuit itself really hinged on two main points. First, the practical side, the massive compliance costs and paperwork it was going to force on people like title agent Celia Flowers. But the bigger constitutional argument was that it violates the Fourth Amendment, the one that protects us from unreasonable searches, by basically turning private citizens into government spies on their own clients. And let me tell you, the reaction from the people who supported this rule was intense. Ian Gary from the Fact Coalition put it really bluntly. He said, and I'm quoting here, "In striking down this rule, the district court has just sided with cartels, money launderers, and U.S. adversaries." So yeah, that gives you a sense of just how high the stakes feel to them. But the judge's reasoning was a lot more legalistic. He basically said the Treasury Department failed to, and this is another quote from his ruling, explain or show how non-financed residential real estate transactions are categorically suspicious. In other words, he didn't think the government had proven that every single all-cash deal is automatically suspicious enough to justify this kind of mass data collection. So, the rule is on hold for now, but believe me, this legal battle is far from over. The big question on everyone's mind is, what happens now? Well, the road ahead seems to have a few key steps. First, pretty much everyone expects the government to appeal this ruling. Its supporters are already calling it an outlier decision. Second, you've got to keep your eyes on 3 other similar cases that are still working their way through the courts. And third, depending on how those cases go, FinCEN could very well get its power back to enforce this rule across the country. This fight is just getting started. And this whole thing leaves us with this fundamental question that is way bigger than just this one court case. It's a classic conflict, privacy versus security. So let me ask you, when it comes to your next home purchase, where do you think that line should be drawn? How much of your personal information is too much to give up in the name of fighting crime? It's a really tough question, and the answer is anything but simple.